Sandra, please lower the music. Your father is on a Zoom call. Sandra groaned. This is my house too, or have you forgotten? I need to get in the mood to create content. How do you expect me to go viral when the vibe is dead? The morning sun filtered through the beige curtains in the Akindele household, but peace had no place there. The moment Sandra's alarm went off, the entire house held its breath. Downstairs, her younger brother Nathan quickly shut off the TV and bolted to the kitchen like a soldier in training. Their older sister Lydia, a final-year university student doing online classes from home, tiptoed out of the living room with her laptop, praying not to catch Sandra's eye. Even their mother, Mama Gloria, paused mid-stir at the cooker, her hands shaking slightly as she added salt to the pot of jollof rice. Sandra stomped down the stairs in fury, her long silk bonnet flapping behind her like a royal train. She wore a matching crop top and short set that screamed, "Look at me," and held her phone in one hand, eyes glued to TikTok as if she were expecting the world to revolve around her next video upload. "Who took my charger again? I said nobody should touch my things in this house," she screamed, her voice slicing through the house like a knife. No one answered. "Sandra, maybe check your room properly," Lydia called softly from the hallway. Sandra turned sharply. "Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me, Lydia? Since when do you have mouth in this house?" Nathan peeped from behind the fridge, shook his head, and disappeared again. Mama Gloria tried to calm things down. "Sandra, baby, please, we're all tired." "You're tired," Sandra snapped, eyes wide. "You're tired of your daughter being better than all of you? That's what you're tired of, Abai?" It was always like this. Sandra believed she was the star of the family, a self-declared queen in a castle full of peasants. If she wasn't yelling, she was mocking. If she wasn't mocking, she was threatening to move out and leave everyone in their poverty. But no one dared challenge her, not even their father, who traveled often for work, wanted to deal with her drama. Sandra ruled the house with chaos, and every day felt like surviving a storm. Until that evening, when the knock came. It was soft, 3 gentle taps on the door. Nathan rushed to open it, eager for a break from Sandra's reign. Standing there was a young woman with a slim bag, glowing skin, and the calmest face they'd seen all year. "Hi," she said with a polite smile. "I'm Zara. Auntie Gloria said I could stay here for a few weeks?" Before anyone could respond, Sandra's voice boomed from upstairs. "Who's that? Another liability?" But as Sandra came down to meet her, something in Zara's eyes didn't flinch. In fact, she smiled even more, and just like that, the house felt a shift. A very small one, but one they'd been praying for. Zara wheeled her small suitcase into the house like she'd done it 100 times before. No fuss, no fear, no unnecessary chatter. Nathan watched her curiously, half hoping she wouldn't ruin the fragile peace that had briefly returned when Sandra went quiet. Mama Gloria stepped in with forced cheer. "Zara, dear, come inside. You'll stay in the guest room. We're so happy to have you." Zara smiled. "Thank you, Ma. I won't be any trouble." From the stairs, Sandra let out a loud snort. "We'll see." At dinner, the atmosphere was tight. Sandra sat at the head of the table like she owned the house, scrolling through her phone with her AirPods in. Lydia avoided eye contact. Nathan nudged the rice around on his plate. Zara sat straight, polite, silent. She barely touched her food. She seemed completely unfazed by the tension. Not nervous, not fidgety, just watching. "Zara," Sandra finally said, removing one AirPod. "Hope you know we don't babysit guests here. You enter this house, you carry your weight. I'm not about to be cleaning after some overfed visitor." Zara looked up. Calm eyes met Sandra's stormy ones. "I understand." No attitude, no backtalk, just that same soft, confident tone. It threw Sandra off. Her insults usually sparked reactions, crying, stammering, awkward laughter. But Zara didn't even blink. Later that night, Lydia peeked into Zara's room. "You okay?" she whispered. Zara looked up from her open notebook. "Yes, why?" Lydia smiled awkwardly. "Just Sandra's a lot. She's not always like this." Zara closed her notebook gently. "It's okay. I've seen worse." And something about the way she said it made Lydia pause. Because behind that quiet smile, Zara didn't look scared. She looked ready. The next morning, Sandra woke up later than usual and immediately launched into her routine. Blasting loud music from her Bluetooth speaker, she strutted into the living room in a fluffy robe and slippers, sipping a smoothie she made by yelling at Nathan to bring the ingredients. Siri, play Bad Girl Energy on full volume, she shouted. In seconds, the house vibrated with bass. Zara was already up, sitting quietly at the dining table with a glass of water, her notebook open again. She didn't look up, didn't flinch. The music didn't faze her. She kept writing, her legs crossed elegantly. Sandra narrowed her eyes. So you're one of those quiet types, Abby? You think that makes you deep? She said, lowering the music slightly and walking toward her. Zara looked up, closed her notebook softly. I'm just focused. That's all. Mama Gloria stepped out of the kitchen, already exhausted. Sandra, please lower the music. Your father is on a Zoom call. Sandra groaned. This is my house too, or have you forgotten? I need to get in the mood to create content. How do you expect me to go viral when the vibe is dead? Mama Gloria sighed. Zara, do you want breakfast? No thank you, Ma, Zara replied politely. I already made tea. Sandra's ears perked up. Tea? You used my oat milk? Zara blinked. It was in the fridge. I thought it was for everyone. Let me make something clear, Sandra said, marching toward the fridge. In this house, my stuff is my stuff. Nobody touches Sandra's things without asking. That's rule number 1. Zara nodded. Got it. Next time I'll ask. Sandra waited for more. An apology, a flinch, anything. But Zara just returned to sipping her water and opened her notebook again. And for the first time in a long while, Sandra had nothing to say. Because it's hard to argue with someone who doesn't play your game. By afternoon, the temperature outside rose, but it was still cooler than Sandra's ego. She sat on the balcony in a dramatic sun hat and oversized sunglasses, filming yet another day-in-my-life vlog with her phone balanced on a tripod. Behind her, the sounds of passing cars, generator hums, and schoolchildren blended into the typical soundtrack of city life. Guys, this house has vibes, but you see peace? It's not here. I'm living with people who think being quiet is classy. Lol. God forbid, she said into the camera, laughing dramatically. Zara walked past her, heading toward the front gate with a book in her hand. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a plain white t-shirt. No makeup, no filter, just peace. Sandra paused her recording and rolled her eyes. Where to, Miss Switzerland? Zara turned. Bookshop. I like to walk. Sandra scoffed. Wow, a bookworm and a loner? Do you also write letters to yourself at night? Zara gave a small smile. Only when I need to remember who I am. Mama Gloria, who had been watering the plants nearby, turned her head sharply. That answer didn't just glide over Sandra's jab, it cut through it. Later that evening, Sandra's frustration spilled into the kitchen. Mummy, that girl is weird. Oh, she doesn't talk. She walks around like she owns air, and everyone's acting like she's a saint. Mama Gloria stirred her soup. She hasn't disrespected anyone, Sandra. And that's the problem. She's too perfect. It's creepy. She's like those serial killer types in Netflix documentaries. Lydia chuckled from the sink, rinsing plates. Or maybe she's just not like you. Sandra turned sharply. Excuse me? Lydia froze. I'm just saying, not everyone likes noise. For the first time in weeks, someone challenged Sandra openly. She stormed out of the kitchen and knocked, slamming the door behind her. Zara returned an hour later, humming softly as she dropped her bag and headed to her room. She didn't ask what the noise was about. She didn't need to, because slowly, the spell Sandra had over the house was starting to crack. And the silence Zara brought, it was louder than Sandra's shouting ever was. Saturday mornings in the Akindele house were usually loud. Sandra's loud, to be precise. She'd dominate the living room TV, blast Afrobeat playlists on full volume, and shout commands at everyone like a frustrated director on a bad movie set. But this Saturday was different. Sandra came downstairs dressed to impress, lashes done, baby hairs laid, and her gold heels clicking on the tiles like punctuation marks. She had plans to go out with her friends and needed everyone to notice. Except, no one did. Nathan was in the corner with Zara, laughing quietly over a card game. Lydia was helping Mama Gloria fold laundry. Even the house help, Bola, walked right past Sandra without reacting to her grand entrance. Wow, Sandra said loudly. Am I invisible in this house now? Nobody answered. She cleared her throat dramatically. I said, am I? We heard you, Nathan replied without looking up. We're just occupied. Sandra blinked. Oh, so that's how it is now? You've all joined her cult. Zara smiled without speaking. She continued shuffling the cards, focused, unmoved. Sandra marched to the table. Give me those. I want to play. Nathan hesitated, looking at Zara. She gave a small nod. Sure. They dealt her in, but Sandra didn't know how to play. She kept asking questions, breaking the rules, getting frustrated. Eventually, she slammed the cards on the table and stood up. This is a dead game anyway, boring people doing boring things. Still, no one responded. She grabbed her phone and stormed off to her room. But just before she disappeared, she turned around. You all think she's quiet and sweet. Let's see how long that lasts. People always show their true colors. And for the first time, her words didn't echo. They just fell flat. Because the house wasn't listening to Sandra anymore. They were watching Zara. And that drove her crazy. The Akindele house was unusually warm that evening, and not just because of the weather. Mama Gloria had made a special dinner, pounded yam and a goosey soup, everyone's favorite. It was a small tradition for Saturdays, one of the few times the family actually ate together. Sandra took her usual seat at the head of the table like it was a throne. She barely acknowledged Zara, who now sat comfortably across from Lydia. The laughter between the girls was genuine, almost sisterly. And Nathan, for once, wasn't looking over his shoulder before laughing at someone else's joke. Midway through dinner, Sandra slammed her spoon down. So nobody noticed I straightened my hair? The room went silent for a second, then Mama Gloria cleared her throat. It looks nice, dear. Just nice? Sandra asked, eyes scanning the table. Zara looked up, then smiled. It suits you. Very sharp. Sandra narrowed her eyes. Thanks, I guess. How humble of you to give compliments now. Zara didn't respond. She simply returned to her food. The silence felt louder this time. Sandra hated it. She used to own these dinners. She used to command them with drama, with flair. But now it was like her voice was sinking into water, while Zara's quiet presence floated above everything. She tried again. By the way, she said, raising her voice, I saw Zara scrolling through my iPad this morning. All heads turned. Zara looked confused. I didn't touch your iPad. I saw you. Don't lie. I don't lie, Zara said simply. Nathan frowned. Sandra, are you sure? I saw your iPad in your bathroom earlier. Maybe you forgot. Sandra flinched, caught. That's not the point. I'm just saying, things go missing in this house and people act like saints. Mama Gloria stood slowly. Sandra, we're all tired. Please don't accuse people without proof. Sandra stood too, offended. So now I'm the problem? The girl who came 2 minutes ago is now everyone's darling, and I'm the villain? No one answered, because the truth was settling in. Sandra's reign was falling apart, and this dinner just made it official. The house was too quiet the next morning. Not peaceful, tense, like everyone was holding their breath. Sandra hadn't come out of her room since storming off from dinner, not to complain, not to shout, not even for breakfast. It was the first time since Zara arrived that Sandra's absence actually echoed. Zara helped Mama Gloria slice vegetables in the kitchen, humming a quiet tune. Lydia sat at the dining table with Nathan, doing a crossword puzzle. For once, the Akindele home felt safe. Then the door creaked open. Sandra appeared. No makeup, no lashes, no wig. Just her bonnet, a wrinkled t-shirt, and dark circles under her eyes. Nobody said anything. She walked past them all, poured herself a glass of juice, and leaned against the fridge. So nobody's going to ask how I'm doing? She muttered. Nathan raised a brow. Do you want us to? Sandra stared at him. Then she turned her attention to Zara, who kept her eyes on the chopping board. You're really enjoying yourself here, aren't you? Zara paused, wiped her hands, and looked at her calmly. I'm just trying to be helpful. Oh, please, Sandra snapped. You don't fool me. You think this is your audition for Daughter of the Year? You want my family to love you more than they love me. That's your little plan, right? Zara blinked. I think your family just wants peace. The room froze. Even the sound of the knife hitting the board stopped. Sandra's mouth parted slightly, like she hadn't expected that kind of honesty. She stepped closer. You've been here for what, 2 weeks? And suddenly everyone's acting brand new. Even my own mother defends you. Zara looked her straight in the eyes. Maybe it's not about me. Maybe it's about what you've been doing for years, and no one had the courage to stop you. Sandra laughed, but it cracked halfway. Because the truth, it hurt. And the worst part, it didn't come with shouting. It came with silence. And Zara's silence was louder than thunder. That evening, the living room was dimly lit. The TV buzzed softly with a movie no one was really watching. Mama Gloria had gone to bed early with a headache, Nathan was upstairs doing homework, and Lydia sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. Zara walked in holding a tray of fruit. "Want some?" she asked Lydia. "Please," Lydia said, smiling gratefully. Just then, Sandra emerged from her room. Her voice cut through the quiet like a slap. "Look at this fake sisterhood. You didn't offer me fruit, Zara. Is it because I'm not classy enough to eat grapes and act mysterious like you?" Zara didn't look up. "You're welcome to join us." "Oh, please," Sandra scoffed. "I'd rather chew nails." She dropped herself onto the couch dramatically, flipping her hair. "You lot are really enjoying this little phase, but let me remind you, I built this house. I am the entertainment. Without me, this place is dead." Lydia looked up. "It's actually been peaceful." Sandra's eyes widened. "Excuse me?" Lydia didn't repeat herself. She just continued eating. Sandra stood abruptly. "You think this is over? I'm still here, and as long as I'm here, none of you can erase me." She stormed toward the hallway, but this time her voice cracked. There was no power in her steps, no fire in her tone, just noise, trying desperately to be relevant. Zara leaned back and took a slow breath. Sometimes the loudest people are just scared of being forgotten. Lydia looked at her. "You're not scared of her, are you?" Zara shook her head. And in that moment, the air felt different. Because Sandra wasn't feared anymore. She was pitied. And that kind of shift? It changes everything. The next morning, Sandra stood in front of her mirror, brushing her edges with slow, aggressive strokes. Her reflection stared back at her like it was judging her, too. She used to love what she saw. Pretty, bold, commanding. But lately, even her own image looked shaky. The silence in the house wasn't just annoying anymore. It was threatening. She stepped out of her room sharply, dressed to kill. Black jeans, crop top, gold chain, lashes flawless. She strutted down to the living room expecting tension. But instead, she heard laughter. Zara, Lydia, and Nathan were watching a TikTok challenge together. They looked so relaxed, like the house finally breathed. "Wow," Sandra said loudly. "You guys turned this house into an orphanage or what? All of a sudden, y'all are bonded by trauma?" Zara turned slightly and smiled. "You're welcome to join," Sandra scoffed. "Oh, please, I don't do charity groups." She stood there for a moment longer, waiting for someone to beg her to stay, to comment on her look, to need her. But nothing came. Later that day, she caught Zara alone in the hallway. "Let's cut the crap," Sandra began. "I know what you're doing." Zara tilted her head. "What am I doing?" "You came here acting all humble and holy, and now my siblings treat you like family, like I'm the outsider." Zara leaned against the wall, calm, steady. "Maybe they just feel safe around me," she replied. Sandra's jaw tightened. "So you think you're better than me?" Zara's voice was soft. "No, I think I'm just not trying to compete." That line hit harder than any insult. Because the truth was, Sandra had always been performing, louder, flashier, meaner, just to make sure she stayed relevant. But now, in the face of someone who wasn't performing at all, she felt exposed, and that terrified her. Because Zara wasn't trying to be her rival. She was just holding up a mirror. Sunday afternoon brought the kind of rain that made you want to stay indoors, wrap yourself in a blanket, and just exist. The entire Akindele house was tucked into its own pockets of quiet. Mama Gloria dozed on the couch, a soft gospel tune playing from the kitchen speaker. Lydia was braiding Zara's hair gently in the living room while Nathan played games on his tablet nearby. Sandra stood at the staircase, watching, unseen. No one had noticed her standing there for 5 whole minutes. She used to be the center of every room, the fire everyone circled, out of fear, out of caution. But today, the house didn't even register her presence. She cleared her throat and came down slowly. Still, no one turned. She walked into the kitchen and stood by the fridge, pretending to look for something. Zara, without even glancing, said, "There's leftover fried rice in the top container." Sandra turned. "You tracking my movements now?" Zara shrugged. "Just figured you might be hungry." For a moment, Sandra was speechless. It wasn't said with spite. It wasn't pity either. Just kindness. Simple, disarming kindness. She opened the container, grabbed a spoon, and ate in silence. Later that night, she overheard Lydia talking to Zara in their shared room. "She's been quieter lately. Do you think it's working?" Zara's voice was soft. "I'm not trying to fix her. I just stopped reacting." "And that made the whole house change," Lydia whispered. Sandra backed away from the door slowly, her heart tight in her chest, because in that moment, she realized something painful. For years, she had kept control through noise. But now, the house had chosen peace. And peace didn't include her throne. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was oddly warm. Zara was preparing breakfast, pancakes and fruit. Lydia helped set the table while Nathan placed cups and cutlery, dancing along to music playing softly from his phone. Even Mama Gloria walked in humming. It was a new rhythm, a quiet, joyful one. Then came the slam of Sandra's bedroom door. She marched into the kitchen like a storm breaking through sunshine, hair undone, voice loud. "So this is it now? You guys are one big happy family, bonded by your mutual hatred for me?" Everyone froze. Zara flipped a pancake calmly, not turning around. "Sandra, nobody hates you," Mama Gloria said gently. "Oh, please, since this saint walked in, it's like I stopped existing." Nathan sighed. "No one made you disappear, Sandra. You just stopped showing up." Sandra pointed at Zara. You came into my house and stole my family." Zara finally turned. "I didn't steal anything. I just filled the space you left behind." Sandra's breath caught in her throat. "Stop acting like you're better than me," she whispered, voice shaking. "I'm not better," Zara replied. "I'm just not trying to hurt anyone." The room fell silent again. Lydia stepped forward. "Sandra, you were the center of this house, but being at the center doesn't mean you have to burn everyone around you." Sandra looked at her sister, at Nathan, at her mother, then finally back at Zara. And for the first time, she didn't yell. She just turned and walked away. Not in defeat, but in confusion. Because no one fought her anymore. And without the fight, who was she? Sandra didn't leave her room all day. No music, no shouting, no sarcastic TikToks, just silence. It was so unusual that Nathan checked the Wi-Fi router twice, thinking maybe she'd lost internet access. Lydia even pressed her ear to the door at one point. All she heard was the faint clink of cutlery and the occasional shuffle of feet. Mama Gloria said nothing. She simply prayed. By evening, Zara knocked gently on Sandra's door and placed a tray of food on the floor outside. Rice, stew, plantain, everything arranged neatly. She didn't wait. She didn't knock twice. She just walked away. Hours later, Sandra opened the door and saw the food still warm. She stared at it for a moment, then picked it up, set it on her desk, and ate in silence. No cameras, no captions, just a meal. She stared at her reflection in the vanity mirror afterward. This time, she didn't pose or pucker her lips. She just looked. For the first time in forever, really looked. Later that night, she sent Zara a text. "Thanks for the food. No emojis, no sarcasm, just words." Zara replied 10 minutes later. "You're welcome. Anytime." That night, Sandra didn't sleep early. Not because she was angry, but because she wasn't sure what to feel anymore. And that kind of quiet was the loudest she'd ever experienced. By mid-morning, Sandra did something the house hadn't seen in weeks. She cleaned the living room, not perfectly, just the cushions, the center table, a few stray wrappers. She wiped, she adjusted, she even opened the windows to let in fresh air. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was surprising. Lydia walked past and stopped in her tracks. "You okay?" Sandra shrugged. It was dusty. Zara appeared from the kitchen with a mop, pausing slightly when she saw her. "You don't have to," Zara said gently. "I know," Sandra replied, "but I should." There was no dramatic music, no applause, no Instagram story, just Sandra quietly folding a throw blanket. Later, she approached Nathan's room. "Hey," she said, knocking lightly, "want to play that game you like? I'll try not to be annoying." Nathan opened the door, eyebrows raised. "Are you okay?" Sandra grinned faintly. "Maybe I'm just bored of being a tornado." Nathan laughed. "Deal, but no screaming when I beat you." As they played, the tension in the house shifted again, not in Zara's favor, not in Sandra's, just into balance. That evening, while washing her plate, Sandra glanced at Zara. "Why didn't you ever fight me back?" she asked. Zara dried her hands, thoughtful. "Because I didn't come here to win. I came here to be kind." Sandra's shoulders lowered. "That's so boring." "Maybe," Zara said, smiling. "But it worked." And Sandra couldn't help but smile, too. Not out of sarcasm, but something dangerously close to respect. The next morning felt like a dream. Sandra was in the kitchen, making breakfast, not yelling at anyone to do it, not ordering like royalty. She was actually whisking eggs, humming a tune under her breath. The entire family peeked in like she was a wild animal trying to act tame. Mama Gloria walked in, half suspicious. "Sandra, are you okay?" Sandra smiled. I figured I should cook before anyone accuses me of being allergic to chores. Nathan whispered to Lydia, I think Zara cast a spell. Lydia chuckled. If she did, it's working. When they all sat at the table, Sandra served everyone without making a show of it. No complaints, no sarcasm, just food, handed over gently. Zara took her plate with a warm, thank you. Sandra hesitated, then nodded. You're welcome. Midway through breakfast, she cleared her throat. I just want to say, I know I've been a lot, and I'm not saying I'll become perfect overnight, but, she paused, I'll try to be less of a hurricane. The table went quiet. Mama Gloria reached across the table, squeezing her hand. That's all we've ever wanted. Later that day, as Zara packed up a small overnight bag to visit her aunt for the weekend, Sandra stood in the doorway of her room. You leaving already? Zara smiled. Just for 2 days. Sandra leaned against the doorframe. Don't tell anyone, but I think I'll miss the silence. Zara laughed softly. The house will be fine. You've got this. And as she zipped her bag, she paused and looked at Sandra. You never needed to be the loudest to be noticed. You just needed to show up as yourself. Sandra nodded slowly. For once, no comebacks. Just understanding. Sunday came with gentle sunlight and an even gentler peace. The house felt lighter, not because Zara was gone for the weekend, but because Sandra was no longer filling it with chaos. She wasn't performing. She wasn't competing. She was just there, present. She helped Nathan with his homework without grumbling. She complimented Lydia's outfit without sarcasm. And when Mama Gloria gave her a long, quiet hug in the kitchen, Sandra didn't roll her eyes or pull away. She leaned in. That evening, as the family sat watching TV together, Sandra scrolled through her phone and paused. She opened her TikTok app, where she used to post dramatic videos filled with rants and exaggerated facial expressions. Instead of filming a new rant, she deleted her most toxic post. Then she turned to Lydia. You think it's too late to start over? Lydia smiled. It's never too late, especially when you mean it. Upstairs, Zara's room was quiet but not empty. Her presence lingered in the peace she'd left behind. And as Sandra walked past the door later that night, she stopped briefly. Not to glare, not to sulk, just to whisper, thank you. That night, as she laid in bed, she didn't scroll endlessly or draft a dramatic caption. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about all the noise she used to hide behind, all the ways she'd tried to matter, and how peace, real peace, didn't need to be loud. It just needed truth. Sandra wasn't perfect. She wasn't fixed overnight, but something had shifted. She was no longer the storm. She was learning to be still, and that, finally, was enough.